Yo, what's good people, it's Cactus, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make melodies. I'll show you a few different techniques and explain my thought process when I'm coming up with them, and also show you how to create certain emotions using different chords and techniques. I have done a couple beginner videos in the past, so if you haven't seen them, I definitely recommend watching them before you watch this one. This one's not going to be too advanced, it's going to be more intermediate. I just want to save some time and skip some of the real basics which you should have learned in my other videos. So I won't waste any more time, let's get straight into it. Alright, I'm going to start off using addictive keys. It's probably easiest to start with piano just so you can hear everything clearly, and then we'll think about changing the instrument. So everyone should know how scales work, and everyone should know that major scales tend to be happy, minor scales tend to be sad. So right now I'm working in minor, and we'll just go with E. So E minor natural. And I'll show you a couple ways to build melodies. So one way is to start with a chord. We're working in E minor, so we'll just draw in an E minor chord. You don't have to start on E, it's just a random one that I've chosen. Now you can keep the chord like this. If you don't like the sound of it, you can try different things to get a different feel. So for example, I could add to the chord. I've just skipped another note. And that would be a minor seventh because look, it's the seventh note. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's the seventh note in the scale added on. So it's a minor seventh. Usually that's done for jazzy melodies. So for this one, I'm going to take it out. But you can also create inversions. So let's say that chord seems a bit too boring for you. You could do a first inversion, which would just be bringing the E up. Another inversion and bring the G up, or you could bring the E and the G up. You just want to play around with inversions until you get the sound that you like with that first chord. It all starts from the first chord, and you don't even have to play all the notes at the same time. You can make an arpeggio, which basically means the chord's going to be broken. So instead of playing all the notes together, you could just separate them any way you like. You could do it the other way, so it's just coming up. Or you could have the top note first. It's all the same chord, we're just playing it in a different way. But let's go with this one. And then you want to think about the root note and where the root note is going to move. So the root note of this chord is E. It's an E minor chord. Have a listen in your head and try and imagine where it's going to go next, or at least decide where it's going to sound best. So you could just press the E and then click some of the other notes. So even that. Yeah, so something like this, right? So we'll go from E, then down to C. So I'm just going to build a simple chord from C. And we'll follow the same process. We brought the top one out, middle one there too. Let's bring it up an octave. And then we said we'd go down to B. So again, let's just build a simple chord. And then going back to inversions, when a real pianist is playing, they'll use inversions, 1, to make a different sound, and then 2, just because it's easier to adjust the hands. So this chord's already close together because we haven't made big jumps in the chord progression. We're literally just going from E to C to B. So to be honest, you wouldn't have to use an inversion, but we can see what the difference is. So we could follow the same process. Let's listen to this. So it sounds nice, but we could switch it up and bring the B up and have this note play second. So I like the sound of that. And then you don't even have to have 4 different chords. You could just copy this one along. Now you've got a basic chord progression. And then for the bass notes, generally speaking, you want the bass notes in the root position of the chord. So we're just going from E to C to B. Let's bring it down an octave. To make it a little bit more interesting, I could cut this in half. Same again here. And then I could really thicken up the sound by copying the bass notes, shift and click, and then bringing them up an octave. And then everyone should know the trick to make it more realistic, just by randomizing the velocity. I could bring the volume down of the bass notes. And then I like to find something towards the end to switch it up. You could either change the last chord or even just change some of the bass notes. I could repeat this. This is just what I'm hearing. And then maybe have it come up. Something as simple as that. And then you could carry on building on top of these chords. So like I showed you earlier with the minor seventh, we could add it here. But it doesn't have to be a minor 7th, you could adjust these. And then to make it more natural, you don't always have to cut the notes off at the end of each bar. It's not how a real pianist would play, so if you want to make it more natural, then I like to hold Alt, click, and then drag some of the notes, just to extend them a little bit. It will only make a subtle difference. Or instead of adding to the chords, you could come up with a different counter melody. So I'll just get rid of these. Most of the time, I'll just play this chord progression and I'll listen in my head and I'll just think of a counter melody. I'll just hum along to it. And then once I've got the pattern, I'll work out where the notes need to go. And then whichever scale you're working in, for example, we're working in E minor here, and we're starting with the E minor chord. A lot of the time, it will sound right if the melody starts with the E, the counter melody. You don't always have to do that, but once you're listening to something, the chances are that it will sound like it needs to resolve back to E. So I'm hearing something like dun, 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 dun. So yeah, that's it. So dun, 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 dun. Yeah, there we go. And now listening to this, coming back to E like I was saying before, it sounds like it needs to resolve back to E, because look, if I just put a note up here, but listen when it's on E. It just sounds like it's ready to start again. I'm actually going to bring these notes up. And then I'm going to copy this, but switch it up. And then here I've just added one tiny note. I've got it set to quarter step, and it's just basically flicking from E to G. And you don't always have to make the counter melody within the same instrument. So I've made it in the piano, it's sounding right, but instead of then finding another instrument and another counter melody, I can just take this counter melody, find a different instrument that complements the piano, and then it will just sound a lot more interesting. So let's just take this. So I've just taken an electric piano in addictive keys, and it sounds so much better. Exact same melody, but I don't know, this one just works better. It's more interesting. And then you can add a few more touches, add all of the drums, and make a beat like this. Just a real basic beat. So that's one melody. Let's change the scale for the next one. We'll go to C minor. All right, now for the next melodies, I want to show you how to make it more dark, like a drill melody. Now with the melodies that I was making before, when you want to make them emotional melodies, you can make big jumps between the chord progressions. But for drill melodies, what I find a lot of the time is the chord progressions don't jump too much. And a lot of the time, one note will sustain, whether it's the root note or one of the other ones. But I'll show you what I mean. So I want to use chords that are quite close together, and half steps or semitones always create that dark feel or tension. So you want to look somewhere like here or here. We'll start with G, and we'll just make a chord. You don't always have to play a chord like that. You can just get rid of one of the notes. And look, I'm going to sustain the G, but I'm just going to move this note down. And let's come up to A flat. So we'll just do the same. So a chord would be like this. I can take out the middle one, and let's go back down again. Instantly, it just sounds like a dark melody you could turn into a drill beat. I've just switched up the piano just to get a darker sounding one, and let's add in some bass notes. You could even adjust some of these notes. And I've set the halftime to 4 times, which is going to make it even darker. Right, now you could start adding a simple melody on top. So I'm just making this note real short just because halftime is going to extend it anyway. And again, with the counter melody, if you use a lot of half steps and you don't jump too far in between the notes, then you're going to create more tension and get a more darker feel. And because we've got it on 4 times halftime, it means we're going to have to bring the second notes even further back. So say we want a note here, we're actually going to have to bring it all the way back here. Again, just a real simple melody. So that's just a quick way to make a dark drill melody. But I also want to show you some other techniques when it comes to building melodies. And one thing that you need to learn is chord progressions. So instead of just drawing in chords randomly, you can actually learn chord progressions that are used in a lot of famous songs. So look, whilst we're in the C minor chord, I'm going to explain something. So every note within the chord will have a number. So it's going to start on C. C is going to be 1, D is 2, E flat is 3, F is 4, G is 5, A flat is 6, and then B flat is 7. And that's just the same all the way up. It's just going to go back to C, which is 1. So when you hear about chord progressions, they're usually wrote in Roman numerals. So for example, a real common one is 1, 4, 5, 1. So let's test it. We've got 1, 4, 5. And then we'll just extend the 5th. And these chords actually have names. This is the tonic, the 4th is the subdominant, and the 5th is the dominant. They're the 3 main chords in any scale. So look, I'll test this straight away. And then back to 1. And then obviously from here, that's when you could play with inversions and see what sounds right. So look at this for example. So this C, if a real pianist is playing, this is going to be harder for the hands to reach compared to this. So that to me sounds nicer. It's going to be easier for a real pianist to play. Not that it really matters because obviously you're drawing in notes, but that's just the idea. That's just why people tend to use them. But you obviously get a different sound. And I don't want you to think that the chords always have to play for a bar each time because that can get a bit boring. So for example, let's just cut this one and we'll bring this one back. See how that sounds. See what I'm saying? It just changes it a bit. You don't always have to just play the chord for 1 bar. Another very common one is 1, 5, 6, 4. So 1, 5, 6, 4. Again, you can build the chords from here. Then you can play with inversions. And you could add in the bass notes. So again, 1, 5, 6, 4. Let's just bring them down an octave. And I'm going to show you another little trick, and it's a time when you can go out of the scale. I don't want to confuse you too much, but there are times when you can jump out of the scale, and a good time to do it is on the 5th because it's quite common to create a harmonic 5th, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'll just bring this chord back up so it's easy to see. So look, this is the 5th chord in the C minor scale. So this is the C minor scale. You can see I was just playing all of the highlighted notes, and then this would be the harmonic minor scale. So it was only the B that I changed. So instead of B flat, I'm just going to B. And harmonic scales are used a lot of the time to create dark melodies, but we don't have to change the scale so that it highlights B, and then every time you get to B, you have to use B. So I said it's common for the 5th chord to be made harmonic. So look, this is the 5th chord here. Instead of using the B flat, we're going to use B. I'll bring these back down to how we had it. It's still going to sound right. Right? And before it was like this. It just sounds a little bit darker. And look, it's out of the scale, but it still sounds right. And it works the same way for major scales as well. There's no difference. So I've just switched it to D sharp major because it's C minor's relative. And you work out the relatives like this. So if I'm working in a minor, like C minor, its relative is 3 semitones up. So 1, 2, 3. So that means that D sharp major has all the same keys as C minor. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4. And then build the chords on top. So it's the same chord progression, it just sounds happier because we're in a major scale now. And this major scale shares all the same notes as C minor, but we're just starting from a different position. That's all that it means. Because look, you could be working in a major scale, D sharp major, or at least that's how you've said it in FL. But if you actually started from the 6, look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 6, which is the C. If you start from the 6, that means you're actually working in a minor scale. I know it sounds confusing, but that's the only difference between the major and minor scales. It just depends where you start the chords. Because look, I could do a 6, 4, 3 progression, 6, 4, 3. And even though I've set it to D sharp major, we're actually playing in C minor. Let's make it more interesting. We could extend this one and let's cut this, bring both of these back. It's the same progression, but we're just rearranging it. But let's cut that too. And then you can play that again. Play the bass notes again, so. Right, it's just a different vibe. You could even change the pitch of it now. So we were working in C minor, could bring it up to D sharp minor. Could make some emotional trap beat with this as well. So learn some common chord progressions. Literally just Google common chord progressions and you'll probably find some of the ones that I've just showed you and then a lot of others. So at least it gives you some guidance instead of just drawing in random chords. So I hope you liked the video and I hope you took some gems from this one. This video was by request and I will be doing more requests. I definitely want to do another mixing video soon, which is going to be more advanced. But let me know if you want anything else. But yo, I hope everyone has a sick new year. I think in 2021 I'm going to go for a lot more placements. So there should be some big things coming. Let me know what plans you guys have got in the comments. Are you going to go for placements? Are you going to try and sell more beats online? Or are you just trying to improve your craft? So let me know. But thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.